October 13th, 1939. The cold, gray waters of the North Sea stretch endlessly under a sky thick with clouds, casting a shadow over the German U-boat U-47 as it glides silently beneath the waves. Inside the sub, the atmosphere is tense. In the cramped control room, Captain Günther Prien stands in front of the periscope, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon. The faint hum of the boat's engines reverberates through the steel hull, a constant reminder of their presence in these unforgiving waters. U-47 is about to make history, but the mission Prien is about to undertake is one that could easily lead to his death and the deaths of his crew. It is a dangerous gamble, one that challenges the very core of naval strategy. Prien has been on the seas long enough to understand the risks of war, but this is different. This is an attack that will defy convention and could very well break the British Navy's sense of security in the North Sea. "Captain, are you sure about this?" Lieutenant Bernd Hinkle, Prien's first officer, asks hesitantly, glancing up at his commanding officer. His voice is a low whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile air of uncertainty that hangs over the boat. Prien does not flinch. His blue eyes remain locked on the periscope as the world outside slowly comes into focus. Scapa Flow, Britain's primary naval base in the Orkney Islands, is within reach. The British fleet, including their pride, the HMS Royal Oak, is anchored here, unaware of the threat lurking beneath the surface. "Do you doubt me, Bernd?" Prien's voice is calm, almost detached, but there's an edge to it. A steely resolve that leaves no room for hesitation. Hinkle stands straighter, swallowing hard, but nodding. He has never seen Prien so focused, so certain of what is about to happen. He knows Prien's reputation, his ability to command, his brilliant tactics, but this is madness. Attacking the British fleet in their own home port? It's a suicide mission. Prien shifts his gaze, meeting Hinkle's eyes for a brief moment. There is no fear in his expression, only an unshakable confidence. "Every man aboard this boat knows the risks. But if we succeed, Bernd, we will change the course of the war. This will not be a battle for the history books. This will be a battle that rewrites them." He moves away from the periscope and begins pacing the narrow space, his boots clicking softly against the metal floor. The crew watches him with a mix of awe and apprehension. They know Prien is a man who leads with his actions, not with words. Yet, as the silence stretches between them, the weight of what he's proposing settles over them like a dark cloud. Scapa Flow. The name alone carries an air of invincibility for the British. The very thought of it is enough to calm any doubt among the Royal Navy's commanders. It is the heart of Britain's naval power, a place where the most formidable battleships and cruisers lie at anchor, protected by miles of water and a ring of islands. It's a place thought to be safe, impregnable to any attack, let alone one from a U-boat. But Prien has studied this harbor in meticulous detail. He knows its geography, its depths, its vulnerabilities. And he knows that the mighty Royal Oak, moored in the center of the harbor, represents the pinnacle of British naval power but also its greatest weakness. The ship, while a symbol of British naval strength, is a target like any other. The key to the success of his plan lies in the element of surprise and, more importantly, speed. Prien steps forward, eyes narrowing as he signals to the sonar officer, Ernst Kummer. The U-boat's engines hum louder as it glides deeper into the waters, inching closer to its target. Kummer's fingers hover above the controls, eyes scanning the sonar screen. "All systems are green, Captain. We are clear to proceed." "Good. Let's move quickly." Prien's voice is low, steady. He takes one last glance at the periscope, where the silhouettes of the British ships are beginning to emerge from the gloom. His pulse quickens. This is the moment where he can prove that the U-boat fleet is not just a threat to shipping lanes, but to the heart of British naval power itself. As the U-47 approaches, the tension becomes almost unbearable. Prien knows that if they are discovered, they will have no chance of escaping. The Royal Navy's countermeasures are powerful, and Scapa Flow is a well-guarded sanctuary. The Germans know the British will retaliate in full force if they are attacked, but Prien has already calculated the risk. He is counting on one thing: that the British will never expect an attack from below. The Royal Oak sits directly ahead, its massive silhouette looming in the harbor. The light from the distant shore flickers weakly in the distance, barely illuminating the British ship's imposing structure. Prien takes a breath, holding it for a moment, feeling the weight of the decision he has made. This attack will be historic. If they succeed, it will send shockwaves through the British fleet, and the German U-boat force will earn a reputation as a weapon far more deadly than anyone could have imagined. But if they fail, it will mean death for his crew and a devastating blow to Germany's naval capabilities. "We strike now," Prien mutters, his voice resolute, his eyes fixed on the Royal Oak. The plan is set into motion, there is no turning back. The submarine shifts slightly as it prepares to launch its deadly payload, and for a moment, time seems to slow. The men aboard U-47 are poised on the edge of history, not knowing whether they will emerge victorious or fall into the deep waters as forgotten casualties. As Prien stands there, watching the Royal Oak grow ever larger through the periscope, he knows one thing. Today will be the day the British fleet realizes the true threat of the U-boat. The U-47 drifts silently through the waters of Scapa Flow, its engines running at a whisper, every movement calculated with precision. The boat's crew is eerily quiet, each man immersed in his own thoughts, the weight of the mission pressing heavily on their minds. The tension is palpable, the silence only broken by the occasional hum of the sonar system or the creaking of the submarine's hull. Outside, the dark waters are still, the waves undisturbed, save for the occasional ripple from the movement of U-47's fins cutting through the sea. From the periscope, Captain Günther Prien watches the heart of the Royal Navy's fleet with keen eyes, his thoughts racing. The HMS Royal Oak, its massive form anchored safely in the heart of Scapa Flow, is in his sights. Prien knows this is the critical moment, the last point of no return. He stands steady at the controls, calculating the distance and the exact angle for the torpedo strike. His mind is sharp, focused solely on the task ahead. The crew has trained for this, spent countless hours simulating attacks, rehearsing for the moment when they would face real combat. But now, as they are on the cusp of making history, nothing can prepare them for what comes next. In the distance, the Royal Oak is clearly visible, a colossal battleship, a symbol of British strength, surrounded by several smaller vessels. The British Navy has placed all its confidence in this harbor, its fleet's most secure stronghold. Yet, here they are, 180 feet beneath the surface, ready to strike at the very heart of the British Empire. "How much closer are we?" Prien asks, his voice calm but tense with anticipation. "Less than 500 meters, Captain," comes the reply from Lieutenant Hinkle, standing at the sonar console. His hands tremble slightly as he adjusts the readings. He can feel the weight of the mission on his shoulders. The boat, the crew, and their very lives rest on this one attack. "We won't get a second chance. When we fire, make sure it counts." Prien's voice is quiet but firm, with a touch of authority that brooks no argument. In the dimly lit control room, the crew holds their breath as the boat inches closer to the target. Through the periscope, Prien sees the Royal Oak more clearly now. The mighty British ship, its towering superstructure and formidable guns, seems almost out of place in the peaceful waters of Scapa Flow. To Prien, however, it is simply another target, one that represents the strength of the British Navy, and one that he intends to strike down. The attack is bold, unorthodox, and highly dangerous. To strike a heavily protected battleship at anchor within a harbor guarded by other warships is a gamble that even the most experienced U-boat commanders would balk at. But Prien is not like the others. He has studied the Royal Oak's defenses and knows that, despite its size, it is not invincible. Its flanks are vulnerable, its defenses overstretched. He has already made his plan. There is no turning back now. Prien waits, watching as the U-47 silently drifts closer. The seconds tick by with excruciating slowness. The crew remains still, each man silently praying that this mission will succeed, knowing that if it doesn't, they will pay the ultimate price. As U-47 comes within firing range, Prien gestures sharply toward the torpedo officer, Johann Schmidt. Schmidt nods and adjusts the torpedo settings with a mechanical precision born from years of training. The men at their stations are ready. Their lives now depend on the quiet execution of this moment. Fire the torpedoes. Prien orders, his voice steady as a rock. The cold metal buttons on the control panel are pressed, and U-47's torpedoes are unleashed into the waters. The sound of the launch is barely audible beneath the submarine's hum. The torpedoes cut through the water with deadly accuracy, heading straight for the Royal Oak. The minutes that follow feel like hours. Every member of the crew is glued to their station, their eyes focused on the sonar and the periscope. The tension is unbearable as they await the inevitable impact. Prien feels his pulse quicken as he watches the Royal Oak in the periscope's lens. It seems so large, so powerful, but now it's just a target they've already struck. Boom! The first torpedo hits. The explosion sends a violent shockwave through the water, shaking U-47's hull with such force that the crew can feel it in their bones. The control room erupts in a chorus of exclamations as the second torpedo strikes the Royal Oak's side. The British ship is hit hard, and immediately, flames begin to lick the sky. The fire is massive, a violent burst of orange and red that lights up the night like an angry Sunday. The crew of U-47 watches in stunned silence. For a moment, time seems to stop as the enormity of what they've just done sinks in. Prien's heart races, but his face remains impassive. He cannot afford to show any emotion now. They've done the impossible, but they're not done yet. He turns to Hinkle, who is already reporting the damage. Direct hits. The Royal Oak is burning. She's sinking. Keep us steady, Burned, Prien says, his tone almost calm. He's already thinking ahead. The mission is far from over. The British will retaliate. But for now, he allows himself a brief moment of satisfaction. They've achieved the impossible, but as the flames from the Royal Oak rise higher into the night, a deeper fear begins to grow. The British will not let this attack go unanswered. The counterattack will come soon, and it will be relentless. Prien knows they must escape quickly or face the full wrath of the Royal Navy. Prepare to dive deep. Full speed ahead. Prien orders, his eyes never leaving the periscope. U-47 begins its evasive maneuver, the crew working frantically to avoid detection. The sinking of the Royal Oak will send shockwaves through the British Navy. But for now, Prien knows they must disappear into the depths before the hunt begins. As the submarine plunges deeper into the safety of the open sea, the crew breathes a collective sigh of relief, but Prien's mind remains focused. This is only the beginning. They've taken their shot, but they must now escape before the British can strike back. The night is far from over, and Prien knows the hardest part of the mission has only just begun. The weight of the previous night's attack still hangs heavily in the air, but Captain Günther Prien remains unshaken. As the U-47 slips deeper into the dark waters of Scapa Flow, the enormity of their success begins to sink in. The HMS Royal Oak, one of the most formidable warships in the British fleet, lies sinking at the bottom of the harbor, flames still licking the sky. The thunderous explosions from their torpedoes are already echoing through the night, and the British fleet is in disarray. But this is not the time for celebration. Prien's focus never wavers. The Royal Navy will respond swiftly. U-47's mission isn't over until they've escaped this enemy stronghold unscathed. The crew of U-47 moves with practiced efficiency, each man fulfilling his role, his movements nearly instinctive. Lieutenant Bernd Hinkle, the first officer, keeps a sharp eye on the sonar, constantly scanning for any sign of the enemy. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Johann Schmidt, the torpedo officer, checks the systems again, ensuring their path is clear. Their hearts beat in sync, the fear of imminent retaliation pushing them to move faster, to be more precise. Prien stands at the helm, hands gripping the controls. He knows this moment will define his legacy if they make it out alive. Prepare for evasive maneuvers, he orders sharply, his voice betraying no fear. Every second counts. But despite his outward calm, there is a flicker of doubt in the back of his mind. He has never attacked a fleet so well defended, so well entrenched. The Royal Navy will not stand idly by after this bold strike. His U-boat, barely 200 feet in length, is no match for the British warships that will soon be closing in on them. He expects planes, destroyers, maybe even heavier submarines to hunt them down. U-47's thin metal shell will offer little protection against the might of the Royal Navy. The mission to sink the Royal Oak has been a tremendous success, but it's the escape that will test their true mettle. As Prien orders U-47 deeper into the waters of Scapa Flow, the U-boat's sonar hums steadily, and the vessel begins its calculated evasion tactics. The plan is simple. Dive deep, keep quiet, and slip out of the harbor undetected. There is no room for error. The British will be searching high and low for U-47, but the sea is vast, and the U-boat's natural environment is its best ally. Prien's skill as a commander will have to carry them through. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours. Every shift in pressure, every vibration beneath their feet sends waves of tension through the crew. Prien watches the periscope, scanning for any signs of enemy vessels, anything that might give away their position. There is nothing but dark water and the occasional flash of distant fires from the Royal Oak. "Captain, we have incoming contact." Hinkle's voice is tight, the strain in his tone palpable. "One ship. It's coming our way." Prien's eyes narrow as he turns to the sonar display. A faint echo is detected, one of the British destroyers sent to patrol the area. It's a formidable threat. The destroyer's speed and firepower far exceed that of U-47. One wrong move, one mistake, and this could all be over. "Ready the torpedoes. Prepare for another strike if necessary." Prien orders. The words come out more as a reflex than a true plan. They cannot afford to be caught. U-47 must get out of Scapa Flow, and quickly. But his mind is already calculating the possibilities. The Royal Navy will stop at nothing to track them down. They'll scour the waters for days if needed. They know they've been struck, and they know exactly where. The crew's eyes are glued to the sonar as the approaching destroyer draws nearer. The tension in the air becomes suffocating. Schmidt, who has been preparing the torpedo system, stands ready. A bead of sweat drips down his forehead, but his hands remain steady. The crew holds their breath as the destroyer's sonar ping grows louder. It's closing in fast. "Depth charge is imminent," Hinkle suddenly cries out. "Down, full speed down," Prien orders, his voice steely and commanding. U-47 plunges deeper into the depths of Scapa Flow. The boat shudders as the pressure builds, the crew bracing for the worst. The destroyer is above them, now just a few hundred meters away. The depth charges will drop any second. Prien feels his pulse quicken, but he remains resolute. He knows that if U-47 is hit, it will be the end. But they must stay the course, no turning back. Boom! The first depth charge explodes above them, the shock waves reverberating through the water. U-47 jolts violently, the hull groaning under the strain, but it holds. The crew holds their breath, the fear in their eyes barely concealed. They know they can't survive many more of these hits. But Prien's orders are clear. Dive deeper. The deeper they go, the more difficult it will be for the destroyers to reach them. The second charge explodes, this time with a thunderous force that rattles the very foundations of the boat. The crew is thrown off balance, and a few men tumble to the floor, but Prien doesn't waver. His eyes are fixed on the controls as the submarine plunges deeper into the ocean's black abyss. They have one shot at escape, and it's slipping away. Another depth charge explodes. The sound is deafening now, but U-47 holds together. The crew, shaken but not broken, moves with precision, ensuring that every command is followed. For the first time in the mission, Prien allows himself a moment of satisfaction. The Royal Navy is relentless, but they cannot catch what they cannot see. U-47 continues its descent, deeper and deeper into the dark waters of the North Sea. The danger is far from over, but the immediate threat from above begins to fade. The destroyers, realizing they've lost contact, begin to pull away, searching the surface, scanning for any sign of the U-boat. But it's too late. The crew of U-47 exhales as the depth charges cease, the threat temporarily neutralized. For a moment there is silence, and then the quiet hum of the engines fills the room again. The crew members exchange looks, their faces a mixture of relief and disbelief. They have survived this time. "We've made it out, Captain. For now." Hinkle's voice is strained, but there is a hint of relief. The danger is still present, but for now, they have escaped the immediate threat. Prien remains silent for a moment, his mind already racing to the next phase of the escape. They have struck a blow to the British Navy, but the war is far from over. U-47 has made history. But now, they must stay alive to tell the tale. The sound of the sea is relentless, a steady, almost hypnotic rhythm beneath the hull of U-47. The depth charge explosions have faded into memory, and for now, the danger has passed. But the battle is far from over. Captain Günther Prien stands at the command post, eyes fixed on the sonar, while the rest of his crew moves about the control room, performing their duties with a quiet precision born of necessity. It's clear that U-47 has survived the immediate threat, but Prien knows that escape is only part of the mission. They have struck a massive blow to the British Royal Navy by sinking the HMS Royal Oak, but they are now deep within enemy waters, and the British will not let this act of aggression go unpunished. The boat continues to slip through the waters of Scapa Flow, its sleek, deadly form hidden beneath the surface. The crew remains on edge, acutely aware that every sound, every vibration, could signal the end of their lives. The sub's engines hum steadily, but even the smallest noise seems amplified in the tense atmosphere. "Captain, we've lost contact with the enemy." Lieutenant Bernd Hinkle reports from the sonar station, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. The destroyers have pulled back. The search seems to have stopped. Prien doesn't respond immediately. His mind races, calculating the risks. The Royal Navy may have been stunned by the loss of the Royal Oak, but they will not give up the hunt. The damage to one of their greatest ships will leave the British seething, their pride wounded, and pride, as Prien knows, is dangerous. "How long do we have before they regroup?" Prien asks, his tone quiet but urgent. "I can't say for sure, Captain, but I estimate a few hours at most before they come after us with everything they've got." Hinkle's response is blunt, but it carries the weight of reality. Time is their most precious commodity now. Prien's gaze shifts toward the sonar readout. The waters of Scapa Flow, once thought to be a secure sanctuary for the British fleet, are now a battlefield. And U-47, a predator lurking in the depths, is the only force standing between the British Navy and its retaliatory strike. Prien knows that they must leave Scapa Flow before the British realize the full extent of the damage, before they can call in reinforcements. Full speed ahead. Dive deeper. Prepare to break contact. Prien orders. His voice is steady, commanding. The crew springs into action, moving with practiced efficiency, working together to carry out the escape plan. U-47 begins to accelerate, the pressure of the deep sea building around them as they plunge even further into the ocean's dark depths. As the submarine descends, the crew breathes a collective sigh of relief. The immediate threat from the destroyers is over, for now. The depth charges, once so violent and deafening, are no longer a threat. But the fear lingers. The British Navy will be back, and they will be furious. Prien glances at the map on the wall, tracing the route that U-47 will take to safety. They must break free of Scapa Flow and head toward the open sea, where the British Navy will have a harder time tracking them. But even as he formulates their escape route, Prien knows that this mission will have consequences far beyond the waters of Scapa Flow. The crew is quiet now, each man lost in his thoughts. Johann Schmidt, the torpedo officer, stands at his post, hands still trembling from the tension of the attack. Ernst Kummer, the sonar operator, keeps his eyes on the screen, his ears straining to pick up any signs of movement. But Prien knows that it is his responsibility now to lead them out of danger. "We've done it, Captain. The Royal Oak is sinking." Hinkle's voice breaks the silence, but his words are tinged with disbelief. "We've struck a blow the British won't soon forget." Prien nods but says nothing. He knows that this victory, while monumental, is only a small part of the larger war. The Royal Navy may have lost a ship, but they still have the power to retaliate. This victory must be followed by a swift escape, or it will mean nothing. They cannot afford to linger in Scapa Flow any longer. The crew of U-47 works tirelessly through the hours that follow, ensuring that the submarine remains undetected as they navigate out of the harbor. The water outside is calm, deceptively so. But Prien knows better. The British will soon be hunting for them, and they must disappear before the full force of the Royal Navy is unleashed. "Captain, We're clear of Scapa Flow. We're in open waters now. Hinkle's voice carries a note of relief, but the war is far from over. Good. Keep alert. We may have made it out, but the real fight is just beginning. Prien responds, his voice sharp with resolve. He knows they have evaded the immediate danger, but now they are far from home, deep within enemy territory, and every minute that passes brings them closer to the British Navy's inevitable response. As U-47 slips deeper into the open ocean, Prien takes one last look at the sonar. The Royal Navy is still searching for them, but they are no longer in the waters of Scapa Flow. They have escaped the British stronghold, but the sea is vast, and the British are relentless. We've done what no one thought possible, but this isn't over, Prien says, his voice calm but full of the weight of experience. We'll make it back home, but only if we keep moving. Stay alert, men. The war is far from over. The crew nods, their eyes filled with determination. They have struck a blow that will echo across the waters of the North Sea, but they know that they must remain sharp if they are to survive the consequences of their actions. The British are coming, and they will stop at nothing to hunt down the men who dared to strike at their pride. As U-47 continues its journey through the vastness of the sea, one thing is certain. The story of Captain Günther Prien and his crew is far from finished. They have made history, but now they must survive it. Hours pass as U-47 slices through the open sea, its hull cutting through the water with deadly precision. The crew remains alert, their eyes scanning the sonar, their hands ready on their stations. The escape from Scapa Flow has been successful, but the mission is far from over. The British Navy may have lost one of its most important battleships, but they are not known for their mercy. Captain Günther Prien stands at the helm, his mind focused, his hands steady on the controls. The sea outside is calm, the waters dark and endless, but beneath the surface, danger still lurks. The Royal Navy will not let this attack go unanswered, and Prien knows that he has only moments before the full wrath of the British Navy is unleashed upon them. Captain, we've broken contact with the British forces, Lieutenant Bernd Hinkle reports, his voice tense but filled with hope. The destroyers have moved out of range and we are no longer being pursued. Prien does not react at first, his expression unchanged. He knows that the immediate danger is past, but this is not the time to relax. U-47 has been in enemy waters for too long, and it cannot afford to linger. They need to get back to friendly waters, to safety, and they need to do so before the British can regroup. Keep the speed steady, Bernd. We'll need to stay alert for as long as we're in these waters. Prien's voice is calm, but there's an underlying urgency to his words. He knows that the British won't take long to recover from the shock of losing the Royal Oak. Their retaliation will come, and it will come fast. The crew remains on edge, their eyes constantly scanning the horizon and the sonar screen for any signs of pursuit. Every sound, every shift in the water is a potential threat. For a moment, the U-boat feels like it is suspended in time, floating in the middle of the sea, with nowhere to hide and no clear path ahead. Captain, we have a contact. The voice of Ernst Kummer, the sonar operator, cuts through the silence. The tension in the control room spikes. Everyone freezes, eyes glued to the sonar screen. The faint echo on the display grows stronger. What is it, Ernst? Prien demands, his voice sharp. It's another ship, Captain, Kummer replies. His hands fly over the controls as he refines the sonar readings. It's a destroyer, close by. A cold shiver runs down Prien's spine. The destroyers are back. It's only a matter of time before they pinpoint U-47's location. The British have learned their lesson this time. They will not underestimate the power of the U-boat. How far away is it? Prien asks, his voice calm but filled with urgency. 2 kilometers, Captain. It's heading straight for us. Prien's mind races. They can't outrun a destroyer in open water, not with U-47's limited speed. The only option is to dive deeper, to disappear into the depths where the British can't reach them. But they've already been forced deep into the sea, and with every meter they descend, the pressure increases. If they go too deep, they risk imploding under the weight of the water. But if they don't dive now, they risk being spotted and destroyed. Full dive, Prien orders, his voice unwavering. We need to go deeper, maximum depth. The crew immediately follows his command, and the submarine begins its descent into the deep, cold waters of the North Sea. The U-47 groans under the pressure, its metal skin creaking as the weight of the ocean presses in from all sides. The crew holds their breath, praying that the U-boat will withstand the strain. "Hold steady. Don't let up," Prien commands. He stands at the helm, his eyes fixed ahead, the periscope a blur as the boat dives deeper. The lights flicker in the control room, and the hum of the engines becomes a distant, almost imperceptible sound. They are now submerged at a depth where the British destroyer will struggle to follow, but they are also pushing the limits of their vessel. The pressure builds as U-47 continues its descent. The deeper they go, the more difficult it becomes to hear the sounds of the sea, and the more disorienting the isolation becomes. The crew's movements become slower, deliberate. Every man knows that they are facing a challenge unlike anything they have encountered before. "We're at maximum depth, Captain." Hinkle's voice comes through, tight with strain. "We should be safe for now." Prien nods, but doesn't say a word. His mind is already turning to the next step. They have escaped immediate danger, but they cannot stay here forever. The British will not give up easily, and they will be back with more firepower, more destroyers, and more advanced sonar equipment. "All stations, stay alert. We won't be safe until we're out of this area. Keep an eye on the sonar. If anything comes our way, we're ready." Prien's orders are firm. He knows that the escape is not complete until U-47 is well out of British waters, heading toward the safety of the German-controlled regions of the Atlantic. The crew remains in their positions, every man on high alert. The next few hours are a blur of tension and silence, broken only by the occasional creaking of the submarine's hull and the soft hum of the engines. They are running out of time. The longer they remain submerged, the greater the risk of being detected. "Captain, we've reached the open sea." Hinkle reports after what feels like an eternity. "We're clear of Scapa Flow, no signs of pursuit." Prien exhales deeply, but there is no time for relief. Their journey is not over. They must continue, staying ahead of the British response, staying ahead of the inevitable retaliation that is sure to follow. But for now, they are safe, at least for the moment. "We've made it this far, but the war is still out there, and we've just begun to make our mark on it." Prien's voice is steady, his resolve stronger than ever. "Keep moving. We'll survive this, men. We've proven that the U-boat is the weapon of the future. Now, we just need to get back home." The crew nods in unison, their spirits lifted by their captain's words. The storm may not be over, but they have weathered the first waves, and they will continue to fight. As U-47 slowly makes its way toward the open waters, its crew knows one thing for sure. The legacy of this mission will echo through the corridors of history. The attack on Scapa Flow will be remembered, and the British will never forget the day the U-boat fleet struck at the heart of their empire. The news of the sinking of the HMS Royal Oak spreads like wildfire through the Royal Navy, reaching the highest echelons of British command. A sense of disbelief hangs in the air as the British fleet, once considered impregnable in the waters of Scapa Flow, finds itself reeling from an unexpected and humiliating defeat. The Royal Oak, a formidable battleship, had been the pride of the British fleet, and now it lies at the bottom of the harbor, a testament to the vulnerability of even the mightiest ships when confronted with the silent terror of the U-boat. The attack has shaken the very foundations of British naval strategy. Admiral Dudley Pound, the head of the Royal Navy, is furious but composed. He knows that this is more than just the loss of a ship. It is a blow to Britain's pride and a sign that the Germans have learned how to strike where it hurts most. The Royal Oak was moored in the heart of Scapa Flow, a safe harbor surrounded by multiple layers of protection, and still it fell. "This can't be," Admiral Pound mutters, staring at the report in his hands. The British have long held the belief that Scapa Flow, with its natural defenses, is untouchable. The idea of a U-boat slipping through the defenses to destroy one of the British fleet's most prized assets seems almost impossible. And yet, it has happened. Within hours, the British Navy begins to mobilize, gathering its strength to respond to this unprecedented attack. Every ship in the harbor is now under increased scrutiny, and additional patrols are dispatched to hunt down the elusive attacker. But there is one problem. The U-47, The vessel that dealt this crushing blow is nowhere to be found. The Germans have to be laughing at us right now, says Captain Thomas K. Blackburn, a senior officer on the flagship HMS Revenge. His face is tight with anger as he paces the deck, his mind racing with the enormity of what has just occurred. "We can't afford to let this go unanswered," Admiral Pound replies. His tone is steely and his jaw clenched in frustration. "We'll find the U-47. I don't care if it takes every ship in the fleet. They will pay for this." The British Navy, known for its pride and precision, cannot tolerate this kind of attack. To lose the Royal Oak to a solitary U-boat is a blow to their reputation. But to let that U-boat escape unscathed would be even worse. The Royal Navy has been wounded, but it will not remain passive. They will hunt the U-47 down, and they will make the Germans regret their audacity. Back aboard the U-47, Captain Günther Prien and his crew are still digesting the magnitude of their victory. The night had been long, tense, and full of peril, but they had made it out of Scapa Flow alive. Their daring attack on the Royal Oak had succeeded beyond even Prien's expectations, but now the real challenge begins: escaping British waters and getting back to friendly territory. The U-47 is submerged deep beneath the ocean's surface, cruising through the waters of the North Sea. The crew is on high alert, constantly scanning the sonar for any signs of enemy ships or aircraft. Prien stands at the helm, his eyes focused on the controls. The silence of the deep is overwhelming, yet the weight of what they have done hangs heavily in the air. "We've done it, Captain. The Royal Oak is sunk," says Lieutenant Bernd Hinkle, the first officer, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "But we can't stay here too long. The British will come after us." Prien nods. "We'll keep moving, Bernd, but we have to stay one step ahead of them." His mind is already racing through their options. The Royal Navy will retaliate swiftly, and they will come for U-47 with all the resources at their disposal. The key to survival is speed, stealth, and above all, the ability to remain undetected. "How long do you think we can stay submerged before they catch up?" Hinkle asks, his brow furrowed in concern. "It's not about how long we can stay submerged. It's about getting out of these waters without being detected," Prien replies, his voice calm but filled with urgency. "We'll head south, towards the French coast. We know the Royal Navy will expect us to head toward Germany, but we'll take them by surprise. They won't expect us to double back." Prien's plan is audacious, but it is their best chance of survival. The British, still reeling from the shock of the attack, will be hunting in all the wrong places. If they can get out of Scapa Flow and into the open sea, they might be able to make their way home without further incident. "Prepare to break surface at midnight," Prien orders. "We'll need to make our final adjustments to the course. If we stay submerged too long, they'll start to close in on us." The crew of U-47 moves with quiet precision, their training kicking in as they carry out their captain's orders. But despite the calm exterior, there is a nervous energy that permeates the boat. The Royal Navy may be wounded, but it is far from defeated. The British will not rest until they have hunted down the U-47, and Prien knows that they must move quickly if they are to avoid the inevitable pursuit. As the night stretches on, the crew of U-47 holds its breath, waiting for the right moment to break the surface. The waters of the North Sea seem deceptively calm, but they are still a battleground. The hunt for U-47 has only just begun. The sun has long set, and the inky blackness of the North Sea surrounds U-47 as it glides deeper into the ocean's cold embrace. The crew, though tired, is still on edge. Every man knows that the real fight is far from over. The loss of the HMS Royal Oak has reverberated across the British Navy like a thunderclap, and the British response will come quickly. As Prien steers the submarine southward, the tension in the control room is palpable. They've escaped immediate detection, but this is only a temporary reprieve. The British will not allow this attack to go unanswered. In London, the British High Command is in a state of shock. The loss of the Royal Oak is a devastating blow to the Royal Navy, and the ramifications are clear. Admiral Dudley Pound, head of the Royal Navy, is livid. His pride has been wounded, and he is determined to strike back. The attack on Scapa Flow is a bold and unexpected move, and the Germans will pay for their audacity. "We cannot let this go unpunished." Admiral Pound's voice is firm. and his eyes narrow as he paces back and forth in the war room. His hands are clasped behind his back, but his mind is racing with thoughts of how to retaliate. He knows that the Germans have struck a devastating blow, but they have also exposed themselves. The Royal Navy's response must be swift, precise, and overwhelming. Find that U-boat. No stone unturned. We will not rest until we track down U-47. His words echo in the room, and the officers around him nod in agreement. The order has been given, and now the hunt is on. The British Navy will pull every available ship, plane, and resource to track down the attackers. It is no longer a question of when they will find U-47. The only question left is whether the Germans can escape before the Royal Navy closes in. Back aboard U-47, Captain Günther Prien feels the weight of the mission pressing down on him. The submarine has now broken free of Scapa Flow and is heading south, away from the scene of their audacious attack. But the threat is far from over. Prien knows the British will be hunting them relentlessly, and their window of opportunity is rapidly closing. The tension in the control room is thick as the crew waits for their orders. Every man knows that their survival depends on their ability to stay hidden, to slip through the fingers of the British Navy before they're found. "Captain, we're in open waters now," Lieutenant Bernd Hinkle announces, his voice tense but filled with hope. "We should be clear of Scapa Flow, but we've still got a long way to go before we're out of British waters." Prien nods, his mind racing. The danger of being pursued is ever present, but they've made it this far. Their survival depends on speed and discretion. The British Navy is still in a state of disarray, reeling from the loss of the Royal Oak. But Prien knows they will rally quickly. He cannot afford to let his guard down, not even for a moment. "Steady as she goes, Bernd. We can't afford to slow down." Prien's voice is unwavering. The submarine cuts through the water at full speed, the sound of the engines a constant reminder of the perilous mission they are undertaking. "Keep the sonar on full alert. We need to know if anything's coming our way." Hinkle's eyes remain fixed on the sonar screen, his hands moving over the controls with practiced ease. For the next several hours, the crew remains on high alert, scanning the sea for any signs of the British response. They know it is coming, but they cannot predict when or how. The fate of the U-47 rests in their ability to stay hidden. As Prien stands at the periscope, his thoughts are interrupted by a faint, familiar noise. The submarine's engines hum louder as they speed forward, but there is another sound now, a high-pitched whine in the air. Prien's heart skips a beat as he realizes what it is. "Airplane," he mutters under his breath, his eyes narrowing as he scans the sky through the periscope. "Get us lower now." In an instant, the U-47 begins to descend deeper into the ocean. The crew moves quickly, their training kicking in as they prepare to evade the aircraft overhead. The submarine's hull groans under the strain as they push it deeper into the water. The noise of the airplane grows louder, and for a moment, it seems like time itself has slowed. The crew holds their breath, hoping that the aircraft will not spot them. "It's a British patrol plane, Captain," Ernst Kummer reports from the sonar station, his voice tight with anxiety. "It's moving closer." Prien grips the controls harder, his face set in a mask of determination. He knows that if the plane spots them, it will be the end. The British will use their bombers and depth charges to destroy the U-47. But for now, they are still out of sight, the submarine sinking deeper into the depths. "Full speed down now," Prien commands, his voice sharp. The submarine plunges further into the water, racing against time and the British plane above. The roar of the aircraft fills the air, but the submarine continues its descent, deeper into the cold darkness of the sea. The crew can only pray that they've gone deep enough, that the plane will lose their trail. Finally, the sound of the aircraft fades, and with it, the crew exhales collectively. They've avoided detection for now. But Prien knows that this is only a temporary reprieve. The British Navy will not stop until they have U-47 inches their sights. "Well done, men. Stay focused," Prien says, his voice steady, despite the tension in the air. "We're still alive, but we're not out of danger. Keep your eyes on the sonar. We'll be in open waters soon, but the hunt has just begun." The crew nods, their faces a mixture of relief and resolve. They have evaded the immediate threat, but they know that the British will come for them again. And when they do, U-47 must be ready to fight or flee. As the submarine glides deeper into the sea, the hunt continues on both sides. The battle between the U-47 and the Royal Navy is far from over, but Prien and his crew are determined to survive, to see this mission through. The Royal Navy may be hunting them, but they've already made history. The world will soon know the name Günther Prien and the daring attack that changed the course of the war. U-47 slices through the waters of the North Sea like a shadow, its sleek form barely visible beneath the surface. The submarine has now been submerged for hours, its engines humming steadily as it moves farther from Scapa Flow, deeper into the open ocean. The crew is exhausted, their nerves frayed, but they cannot afford to rest. The Royal Navy's retaliation is imminent, and they are now well within the reach of British forces. Captain Günther Prien stands at the helm, his eyes locked onto the periscope. The familiar surroundings of the control room are quiet, but the weight of the mission presses heavily on him. The attack on the HMS Royal Oak has been a success far beyond even his own expectations, but now the real danger begins. The British will not forgive the destruction of their pride, and the manhunt for U-47 has begun in earnest. Captain, we have another contact on the sonar. The voice of Ernst Kummer, the sonar operator, cuts through the tense silence. The strain in his voice is unmistakable. The British are still searching for us. Prien doesn't flinch. He already knows what the sonar will reveal. The hunt is on, and every moment of this mission has led to this. What is it? Prien asks. His tone is sharp as ever, though there's a subtle edge to it. He knows the British won't stop until they've found U-47. It's a destroyer, Captain. The sonar is picking up its pings. It's moving fast, closing in on our last known location. Kummer's voice trembles slightly, but his eyes stay fixed on the screen. Prien's mind races, calculating their options. They're deep beneath the waves, but the destroyers above are relentless. If the British are tracking their last known position, they're running out of time. How far? Prien asks, though he knows the answer. The question is rhetorical. Every second counts. 2 kilometers. The destroyer is getting closer. Prien grips the controls tighter. This is the moment that will decide whether U-47 survives or becomes another victim of the relentless British pursuit. He can feel the pressure mounting as the crew springs into action. They've evaded the immediate dangers, but now they must navigate through the deep waters with care, avoiding detection by the ever-approaching British forces. Steady as she goes, Bernd. We need to keep our distance. We can't let them close the gap. Prien orders calmly, though inside, his mind is already calculating their escape route. Lieutenant Bernd Hinkel, the first officer, nods as he adjusts the speed of the submarine, carefully navigating it through the cold, dark sea. The tension in the control room is suffocating, and every crew member knows what's at stake. The British destroyer's sonar pings are growing stronger, reverberating through the water like the pulse of a predator closing in on its prey. U-47's crew is well trained, but the situation is dire. We need to dive deeper, Captain, Hinkel suggests, his voice strained but filled with purpose. We're at a risk of being detected. Prien doesn't hesitate. Dive deeper. We'll take them by surprise. Full speed down. The U-47 begins to descend into the depths of the North Sea, the pressure building with every meter. The crew braces as the submarine plunges deeper, the groan of the hull under the immense pressure filling the quiet control room. The sonar's pings grow fainter as they descend, but Prien knows that they can't stay here for long. If they go too deep, the chances of being trapped or hitting a seabed rise. How's the destroyer? Prien asks, his eyes focused on the sonar readout. Kummer looks up, his face etched with tension. It's still coming, Captain, but we're losing it. The depth is working in our favor. Prien nods, but the battle is far from over. The British will not give up so easily. They have the advantage of numbers, of technology, and they know U-47's tactics. If they manage to pinpoint U-47's location, it will be the end. Prepare the torpedoes, just in case. We might need to defend ourselves. Prien orders, though he hopes they don't need to take such drastic measures. The last thing he wants is to engage in a direct confrontation. They are outnumbered and outgunned. Their best chance is to slip away unnoticed. The crew works with rapid efficiency. Schmidt, the torpedo officer, prepares the weapons for launch. The sound of the torpedo mechanisms clicking into place echoes through the control room, adding to the rising tension. The destroyer is still close, its sonar pings now almost deafening. It's only a matter of time before it detects the U-47. The question is, will they have enough time to escape? "Captain, the destroyer is almost upon us," Kumar announces. His voice is tight, every word a reminder of the ever-present danger. Prien's jaw tightens, his mind racing. "Steady, men. Keep calm. We're not dead yet." His voice is sharp, cutting through the rising panic. The crew looks to him, and for a moment, their confidence is renewed. They have followed him this far, they will follow him through whatever comes next. Suddenly, the sonar picks up a new signal. It's faint at first, but it's unmistakable. A plane. A British Hudson bomber. "Plane incoming," Hinkle shouts. The realization hits hard. The Royal Navy has escalated the search. A bomber will carry out aerial reconnaissance, pinning down their location from above. Prien curses under his breath. "Dive deeper. Get us out of here now." The U-47 plunges even further into the depths of the North Sea, the ocean pressing against it with a crushing force. The noise from the plane overhead grows louder, but the submarine remains hidden for now. The crew waits, their hearts pounding, eyes fixed on the sonar and periscope. Every second a race against time. "Captain, we're clear of the destroyer. We've lost contact," Hinkle reports, his voice relieved but still cautious. "The plane?" Prien asks, his eyes narrowing. "Still overhead, Captain. It's circling. We need to keep moving." The crew knows they can't linger in one place for long. They must make it out of British-controlled waters, into the vastness of the Atlantic, where they can disappear into the open sea. But with each passing moment, the pressure increases. The British are hunting them, and they will stop at nothing to find U-47. "Keep moving, men. We've come this far, and we'll keep fighting. We're not done yet." Prien's voice is unwavering, even as the tension inside U-47 grows unbearable. The chase is on, and U-47's crew knows that their survival depends on one thing: staying hidden. The U-47 continues its desperate flight into the depths of the ocean, the sounds of pursuit fading behind them, but the danger is far from over. The British are closing in, and every moment counts. The chase will continue. For the crew of U-47, the days following the attack on HMS Royal Oak blur into a tense series of movements and evasions. The submarine moves ever deeper into the North Sea, its hull groaning under the strain of constant submersion. Captain Günther Prien remains steady at the helm, his eyes constantly scanning the periscope and sonar as they continue their flight toward the open ocean. Above them, the hunt is far from over. British ships and aircraft scour the waters, their relentless search patterns drawing ever closer to U-47's last known location. "We've evaded the destroyers," reports Lieutenant Bernd Hinkle, his voice tight with exhaustion. His eyes flicker over the sonar screen. But there are still signs of aircraft patrols. It's only a matter of time before they spot us again. Prien nods, his face betraying nothing of the tension simmering beneath the surface. He knows this mission is far from over. The deeper they move into enemy waters, the greater the chance that the British will catch up. With each passing hour, the odds of being detected grow exponentially. But they've made it this far, and the thought of giving up now is unthinkable. "We're getting closer to the deeper waters, Captain," Hinkle continues, his voice more hopeful now. "If we can just hold on for a few more hours, we'll be in the open sea. It will be much harder for them to track us there." The promise of open water is tantalizing, but Prien knows better than to trust in false hopes. U-47 has evaded the British once, but they won't stop until they've found her. The British Navy's pride has been wounded. The Royal Oak's loss is not something they will easily let go. Their retaliation will be swift and furious, and Prien can't afford to relax until they're safely out of reach. "Full speed ahead, Bernd. Get us to the open sea. I don't want to be anywhere near Scapa Flow when the British figure out what happened." Prien's voice is firm, though there's a slight edge of urgency now. He knows that they can't afford to be caught off guard again. The crew works quickly and quietly, following Prien's orders with disciplined precision. Johann Schmidt, the torpedo officer, checks his systems one last time, ensuring that the weapons are locked and ready, should they need to defend themselves. He looks at Prien, but there's no need for words. They all know what's at stake. For hours they continue their journey, the sub's engines humming steadily as it moves through the frigid, dark waters. The crew holds their breath, waiting for the next signs of danger, knowing that even the slightest mistake could lead to disaster. The radar pings from the British patrol planes are like distant thunder in the distance, growing fainter with each passing minute. But they are never truly gone. The hunt is always there, lurking just beyond the horizon. Then suddenly, Ernst Kummer at the sonar station speaks up. "Captain, there's a change in the sonar readings. A new contact." Prien's heart skips a beat. He moves swiftly to the sonar console, scanning the readings himself. The signature is unmistakable. Another destroyer coming in fast, closing the distance. The British aren't done yet. "How far?" Prien asks, his voice steady despite the growing anxiety in his chest. "Just over a kilometer, Captain. It's moving quickly. It's a fresh one. They've sent reinforcements." Prien's mind races. They're close. So close to the open sea. The British are desperate to track them down, but they have no idea just how much danger they're in. U-47 is still fast, still capable of disappearing beneath the waves, but it can only outrun them for so long. "Prepare to dive," Prien orders without hesitation. The submarine begins its descent, moving deeper into the abyss. The pressure around them mounts as they plunge into the dark waters. The crew braces for the familiar groaning of the hull under pressure. "We can't dive too deep, Captain," Hinkle warns. "If we go too far, we'll risk damaging the hull. We don't have the luxury of making mistakes now." Prien nods, but his mind is already calculating the best course of action. If they can dive just deep enough, they can evade the destroyer. But they can't afford to stay at maximum depth for long. "Let's go to 150 meters. We'll stay there until the destroyer passes. Then we'll climb again and head for the open sea." The crew follows his orders, the submarine descending deeper, the sounds of the world above becoming muffled and distant. The pressure is immense, but the U-47 holds firm. This is the moment they've been preparing for, the moment that will define whether they live or die. Hours pass as they remain submerged, the destroyer's sonar pings slowly fading away. The crew is on edge, waiting for the slightest sign that the British are no longer searching for them. The tension in the control room is suffocating. Every man is aware that they have entered a deadly game of cat and mouse. The British are determined to catch them, but U-47 is determined to escape. Then, as if in response to the deafening silence, Kummer speaks again. His voice, though faint, is filled with relief. "Captain, the destroyer has passed. We're clear." A collective sigh of relief escapes the crew. They've made it. For now, they are free. Prien exhales deeply, his grip on the periscope loosening. He knows the battle isn't over, but they've won this round. The destroyer has passed, and they are one step closer to freedom. "Well done, men. But we're not out of the woods yet. We still need to get to the open sea. Keep your stations tight." Prien's voice rings out, steady and firm. The crew gets to work immediately, continuing their journey toward safety. U-47 begins to rise slowly from its depth, the pressure easing as they ascend toward the open waters. The engines hum louder now as the submarine surfaces, and the crew breathes a quiet sigh of relief. The hunt is not over, but for now, they have won. Prien stands at the helm, his eyes on the horizon, knowing that their escape is only temporary. The British Navy will keep searching, but they've survived. For now, the world above is endless, and U-47, now out of the deepest parts of the North Sea, glides steadily toward the open waters of the Atlantic. The ominous threat of British destroyers and patrol aircraft still looms, but for now, they are safe. The cold, dark waters of Scapa Flow are behind them, and the U-boat has evaded the British response. However, the crew knows that the danger is not over. The vast expanse of the open sea is filled with both promise and peril. Captain Günther Prien stands in the control room, watching the periscope, his mind still focused on the mission. The previous days have been a blur of tension and near misses, but now they are finally on the move, heading toward the coast of France and eventual safety. However, every minute feels like an eternity. The U-47 has been through hell, but Prien knows that as long as they remain in the enemy's waters, they are not safe. The British will continue to hunt them, and the success of the Royal Oak mission may only serve to fuel their pursuit. How far to the French coast? Prien asks, turning to Lieutenant Bernd Hinkle, his first officer, who is now keeping track of their position. About a day, Captain. Maybe a little more depending on speed. Hinkle's voice is strained, but there's a note of optimism in it now. The crew can feel it too. Their hope is rising with every mile. Prien nods, but his mind is still sharp, always calculating, always anticipating. We won't slow down. If we're spotted, it's over. Full speed ahead. His tone leaves no room for hesitation. The crew responds quickly. The hum of the engines intensifies, and the U-47 surges forward, cutting through the dark waters, each second feeling like a race against time. As they leave the shores of Britain behind, they're not just escaping the Royal Navy, they're running from the consequences of their actions, the wrath of an empire that will stop at nothing to avenge its losses. Hours pass. The crew moves with a quiet urgency, their eyes constantly scanning the sonar, the periscope, the radar. They are like ghosts in the water, hoping to slip unnoticed through the cracks of the British naval patrols. But even as they push forward, Prien can't shake the feeling that the British are closing in. It's the fear of being found that keeps the crew tense, keeps them watching, waiting. Captain, we have a new contact. Ernst Kummer, the sonar operator, speaks up, his voice betraying the anxiety in his chest. It's a large ship, heading our way. Prien's heart drops. The crew holds their breath, eyes darting to the sonar screen. They are still too close to the British-controlled waters. A large ship means a destroyer or possibly a battleship. The situation is critical. They've come so far, but one mistake could end it all. How far? Prien asks, his voice steady but laced with tension. 2 kilometers. Closing fast, Captain. Kummer's voice is almost a whisper, and in the silence of the control room it sounds deafening. The crew moves with practiced precision. Schmidt checks the torpedo systems once more, though Prien knows they can't afford to fight. The destroyer, if it finds them, will mean certain death. They need to get out of range fast. Down, Bernd. Dive deep, Prien commands. Maximum depth. The U-47 responds instantly, the engines shifting as the submarine begins to sink deeper into the ocean, the pressure increasing as they move away from the surface. The hum of the engines seems to grow fainter as they descend further, the water surrounding them becoming darker and colder. Keep an eye on the sonar, Ernst. We need to know if it's following us. Prien orders, never breaking his focus. For a moment, there's only the sound of the submarine's descent, the groaning of metal under pressure, and the quiet hum of the crew moving in synchronized motion. They have done this before, sinking into the depths to avoid detection, but it never gets easier. Every minute spent submerged is a minute closer to being detected. They have one shot at this. It's still there, Captain. It's coming closer. Kummer's voice cracks, his fingers nervously hovering over the sonar controls. We need more depth. Prien clenches his jaw, the tension in his muscles palpable. The decision is clear. The deeper they go, the harder it will be for the British to track them, but they cannot risk going too deep. The U-47 is a finely tuned machine, but it has its limits. If they push it too far, the consequences could be catastrophic. Full speed down. We'll go as deep as we can without exceeding the limits. Prien commands, his voice low but firm. The crew moves quickly, and the submarine dives deeper into the ocean's depths, every meter feeling like a lifetime. We've lost them, Captain. The sonar ping has stopped. Kummer finally reports, the relief in his voice palpable. For a moment, there's a collective exhale among the crew. They've done it again. The destroyer has passed, unaware of the U-47 lurking beneath the waves. We're safe for now. But don't relax, Prien warns, his eyes scanning the depths, his mind still sharp. The British will be back. They won't give up. We need to get to the French coast, and we need to do it quickly. The crew nods in unison. They know the danger is far from over. Every second spent in these waters brings them closer to being discovered. The British won't stop hunting, and neither will Prien. He can't afford to fail, not now. Not after everything they've sacrificed. Prepare for surface once we're clear. We're heading for France. Prien's voice is calm, but there's an unspoken resolve behind it. This mission will end on their terms. As the U-47 rises slowly from its depths, the crew remains focused, every man acutely aware of the danger that still looms. The surface of the sea is ahead, and the French coast is in sight. But even as the U-47 emerges into the open waters of the Atlantic, the pursuit is not over. It will be a long, dangerous journey home, and they will have to outwit and outrun the British at every turn. The fate of the U-47 and the men aboard her is still hanging by a thread. The waves of the Atlantic are a welcome sight to the crew of U-47. After days of evading the relentless pursuit of the British Navy, the submarine now glides through the open sea, its hull cutting through the water with newfound ease. The pressure of being hunted, of constantly feeling the threat of British destroyers and aircraft bearing down on them, begins to lift as they edge closer to the French coast. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, the crew of U-47 allows themselves a moment of respite. But even in this brief moment of calm, Captain Günther Prien remains on edge. He knows that their escape is far from guaranteed. The British Navy will not rest until they have exacted their revenge, and though U-47 has slipped out of their grasp for now, the threat still looms. They are not home yet. "How far to France, Bernd?" Prien asks, turning to Lieutenant Bernd Hinkle, his voice still steady despite the exhaustion in the room. "Less than 100 miles, Captain. We should be there by tomorrow." Hinkle responds, his voice filled with cautious optimism. Prien nods but doesn't smile. The danger has not passed. As long as they remain in enemy-controlled waters, they must remain vigilant. Every new contact on the sonar sends a fresh wave of anxiety through the crew. The sounds of the sea, once a constant companion, now feel like a constant reminder of their proximity to the enemy. "Keep the sonar on full alert," Prien orders, his tone sharp. "If anything comes our way, I want to know before it gets too close." The crew moves with quiet efficiency. Ernst Kummer, the sonar operator, adjusts his equipment, his eyes scanning the readings with painstaking care. The pressure of their situation weighs on him, but his focus remains unwavering. They are so close now, just a few more hours, and they'll be out of the Royal Navy's reach. But then, the unthinkable happens. "Contact, Captain." Kummer's voice rings out through the control room, his voice strained with fear. "A large ship. It's coming right for us." Prien's heart sinks. Another destroyer? The thought is almost too much to bear. After everything they've been through, after everything they've endured, the British are still hunting them down. The warships just keep coming. "How far?" Prien asks, his voice flat, betraying none of the panic he feels inside. "Just under 2 kilometers. It's closing fast, Captain." Kummer reports, his hands trembling as he works the sonar. Prien's mind races, calculations firing off in his brain. 2 kilometers. That's too close. They won't have time to dive again, and they're too far from the French coast to escape in time. If the British ship detects them, it will be over. They will be sunk before they even have a chance to fight back. "Dive," Prien orders sharply. "Get us down now. Maximum depth." U-47 responds instantly, the hull groaning as the submarine begins to descend once more. The engines rev in response to Prien's command, and the crew braces for the pressure as the U-boat dives deeper into the cold, unwelcoming waters of the Atlantic. The destroyer above them moves closer, its sonar still pinging, growing louder by the second. "Captain, we're approaching maximum depth," Hinkle calls out. His voice is tense, the reality of the situation dawning on him. "We can't go much further. The U-boat can't handle more pressure." Prien's grip tightens on the controls. The British destroyer is closing in fast, and they're running out of time. If they descend too far, U-47 risks being crushed by the weight of the sea. But if they stay shallow, they risk detection. They've been through this before, evading depth charges, dodging aircraft, but now, with the stakes higher than ever, Prien knows the margin for error is non-existent. "Hold steady," Prien orders, his voice resolute. "We'll maintain depth for now. Keep on course, and wait for the destroyer to pass." The crew watches the sonar, eyes fixed on the fading signal from the destroyer above. It's close now, but they can't afford to move too much. Any sign of activity could give them away. The silence in the control room is almost unbearable. Every second feels like an eternity. The pressure in the deep sea continues to mount, but they hold their position, hoping that the British ship will sail right over them. Minutes drag by, and then at last Kummer speaks. "It's past. We're clear, Captain." A collective sigh of relief sweeps through the crew. The destroyer has passed, and for now, U-47 is safe. The tension that had been building for what felt like hours lifts, though the war is far from over. The British might have missed them this time, but Prien knows they'll be back. The hunt is relentless. "We've survived this round," Prien says quietly, his voice reflecting both the relief and the grim reality of their situation. "But don't forget, this isn't over. We need to make it to the French coast, and we need to do it without drawing any more attention to ourselves." The crew nods in agreement. The attack on the HMS Royal Oak has proven their strength, but it has also marked them as a target. The British Navy will not stop until they have found U-47 and destroyed it. Prien's resolve hardens. "Get us moving again. We'll stay just deep enough to avoid detection, but no more. We don't need to make any more waves. We need to reach safety." The U-47's engines hum to life again, its hull moving steadily through the depths as they continue their journey. The crew works seamlessly, each man acutely aware of the danger that still lurks just beyond the horizon. The British response may have faltered for now, but the chase is far from over. The French coast is still their goal, and the world of naval warfare is closing in on them like a net. But U-47 has proven that it is no ordinary prey, it is a force to be reckoned with. As U-47 continues its journey toward the French coast, Captain Günther Prien knows that their survival will depend on one thing above all else: their ability to remain unseen. The British might have the advantage of resources and technology, but U-47 has something just as powerful: cunning, determination, and the audacity to strike at the heart of the British Navy. For now, they are still alive, and as long as they are alive, they will continue to fight.